Good evening, everyone. It's 5:30 p.m. in Melbourne. It's a live stream today with Fastlane Solutions. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for finding time this evening to join us. Please make sure you introducing yourself in the comments. Just let us know your name and where you're watching us from today. Because me and Eugene, I guess, only in Melbourne. And we're still struggling in stage 4 isolation. So that's why make sure you pop in the comments where you're joining us today so you can relate to our painful situation or maybe not. So, guys, today's topic is a challenge and compliance in the cloud in 2020. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to discuss some common cloud compliance misconceptions today and how to automate a time-intensive task to save your team valuable time and allow them to focus on what actually matters to your business. So the topics that we will be covering in tonight's live stream is things like how to, with like increase in regulations, how we need to invest more in compliance, why manual audits are like painful and inefficient, and how you can actually reduce cost and improve efficiency by automating compliance on a wider scale. So, all those is quite relevant topics in today's climate, and especially now that a lot of businesses simply putting everything on hold. So make sure you tag people who need this information today and need to hear this information. So before I'll ask our speakers to introduce themselves, I just want to remind you that tonight we are going live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And make sure you pop all your questions, into the comments, and we're going to answer all your questions from all the platforms. Make sure ask some tricky questions, Igor, as well, because probably will be some giveaway at the end of the live stream as well for those who are participating the most. And please, as I say, if you're enjoying our tonight's discussion, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit this like button to encourage us to keep going, because we are keen to bring you more various experts from the industry for Q&A in the future as well. So before we dive into our discussion, I'll just ask everyone to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about themselves. So we have a few people joining us from China, from the moon. Here we go. Why not? And I'll ask from Igor. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks a lot, Jana. Well, my name is Igor. I'm a principal consultant in Fastlane Solutions, and I'm looking after our technology and automation area. So thanks a lot for organizing this live stream and helping us with it. Yeah, I'll move to Rashu, I guess.
Hi, I'm Rashu. I'm a general manager at Fastlane. I look after their cloud practice, I've just joined. It's only been a week and a half, but yeah, that's me. I'll pass it over to Eugene.
Thanks, Rashu. I'm Eugene. I'm actually in Melbourne right now, as Jana mentioned. Business development is my role, which actually brings you to different places, even in these restricted times. And my role is linked to looking after all of our success and growth, including the areas which guys just outlined at this live stream.
And I guess you know that I'm Jana Martins, and I'm done work on the Fastlane, but I enjoy running compliant live streams for IT industry. So we have Paul joining us from Geelong as well, and a few people. MTS is here. So guys, whoever is joining us, I want to ask you first question. So our first question, is your business new to cloud technology? Please make sure you pop your answers into the stream, and we will start with our tonight's presentations. I'll pass it over to Eugene.
I'll probably start with the first question to Igor. We have pretty much a lot of background experience of talking to customers and potential clients these days. And normally we tend to identify what are their pains in terms of compliance, because it's a pretty broad term. So probably, Igor, could you please give us a little bit of outlook at the Australian landscape around what are the specific, what might be the specific areas of compliance requirements, maybe around privacy, maybe around cybersecurity and other areas? And if you can somehow relate those to kind of international practices. I know some people from Europe also watching us tonight. So yeah, just give us a little bit of, this painful landscape outlook.
Well, yeah, thanks, Eugene. So in Australia, particularly, there's a whole lot of frameworks going on, depending on which industry you're in, what kind of data you're dealing with, whether it's a financial and cardholder data, then you're probably under PCI DSS compliance regulations, and also APRA is quite interested in your business. If you're dealing with personal information, and that's all sorts of insurance companies and retail and whatnot, then most likely it's PII or SPI. There's also a Privacy Act. There's medical records, health records compliance, and as well as this new thing called GDPR, which looks like everyone is afraid of.
I even have a picture about GDPR.
What is this? Jana?
I think it's been there for a year or so. When nobody knew how to address that, that was the first approach.
Here we go. I solved the problem with GDPR in one picture.
Okay, right. So basically, yeah, basically pray. Yeah, makes sense.
All right. So can I ask a question?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
So this doesn't make sense.
Look, a lot of organizations have trouble coordinating the various compliance activities, right, across the organization. I mean, I've seen in organizations there, one's trying to do compliance across the various divisions. How do you get a process going that, you can do compliance across the organization, across multiple divisions with ease?
Across multiple divisions. Well, essentially, it depends on what part or area of compliance we are talking about. So in terms of, we here are focusing on IT specifically. So in so in our way, in our experience, basically you make compliance a center of excellence. So and shared service. So everyone is running under the same framework, even if certain divisions have their own segmented areas in the organization where slightly different rules apply. So you start with regulatory authority, because compliance is not something you want to do. It's something you have to do. So you always talk to your auditor, you always talk to your regulator, and you find out what are the requirements for your organization or particular division. And then you essentially collate it all to your organization-wide policy, which usually maps to all of those requirements, unless there's something very specific for each particular business unit. And then you let every business unit to implement their own policy if it's slightly different from the general one.
I'll probably jump in with a slight kind of clarification question here. If we go down the road of any audits, because apparently on the other side of the fence, organizations would have to go through this journey of being audited, whether it's Big Four or other relevant companies, which kind of validate the compliance status. How can modern automation practices help to release release the time and effort from these routine audits, and basically help businesses to concentrate on their core business, unless their core business is compliance, right? Something else that they're actually doing for the market.
There's only so much you can automate. That essentially, if we're talking about IT specifically, and I think that's the wrong slide here. That's all right.
We should have automated it as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jana. Essentially, your usual compliance pane looks like this. So you're either APRA or PCI compliance organization. Sorry, APRA regulated, PCI compliant. And every few months, usually once every 6 months, you have this massive activity that kind of puts a massive effort on your IT, essentially, where you have auditors coming from one of the big consultancies, such as Deloitte, KPMG, all those guys. And they come around with what's called an audit plan. And usually you have to allocate at least a couple of your systems engineers so that they come over for a few weeks, look at particular configurations and settings in your environment, whether you're running it on-premise or in data center. You look at how your workstations are configured. They look at how your servers are set up, what are your cloud configuration, and they basically go through this massive pile of papers, just ticking the checkboxes, essentially. And that's something that you can that's something that you can very easily automate out of existence, essentially.
Okay, it's pretty good. So look, talking about compliance, and you've explained so far how is the general compliance in an organization, which was my first kind of question, and then we spoke about how you can even maybe potentially automate, but we haven't gone there much. But just looking on the other side, how quickly can a compliance system become non-compliant? Because often I've seen in organizations that you do a compliance check, and a year later you do another one, and I haven't seen always fantastic results. So just want to ask you this question about how quickly something can be non-compliant, and how quickly you can fix it as well, because you find an issue and how quickly do you fix it. So it's a double-edged question. Yeah.
Well, anything can become non-compliant the moment you finished your audit. So you went there, you looked at your system, you looked at your configurations, you looked at your practice, something happened, someone went on to fix a production issue, changed the configuration because otherwise, system prevents them to do certain things, and then they forget to lock it down again. Or the moment, the next day after you finished your audits, either there can be new vulnerabilities that are discovered. Usually you have a little bit of a rundown in terms of where new compliance rules and versions of existing frameworks come into place, and you are required to do more. It's always more. It's never, I haven't seen the new version of any compliance or regulations that would say, hey, now you have to do much less than you used to do. They're always cracking down. They're always adding more controls to the framework. And yeah, that's all results in your non-compliant system. So sometimes you can flip out of compliance just a half an hour before auditor gets to see it. So if you're very unlucky.
And sorry, the second part of that, Igor, was how quickly can you fix it? So yes, I agree, it can be non-compliant. Traditionally, how long does it take?
To fix it, to remediate, weeks, months, years. Jana, what's with this new? What's with these pictures? I haven't seen them before. That's some very creative live streaming. That's amazing.
Compliance is a
I agree
very
with you.
heavy
It
topic,
can
so
be
you
a
need
wide
to
variety
think
from
of it.
days, weeks, or years. Absolutely.
Yeah. It depends on how bad your situation is, how much you discovered during your audit process, right? And it can take years to remediate. Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
And in
cool.
terms of risks, Igor, just continuing that topic. So if we're talking about risks, any organization, especially SMBs, small, medium businesses, they would consider, okay, maybe I can become non-compliant based on whatever benchmark, but what are the risks for myself? Do I really have to invest in automation or any complex, long-term things to resolve that? So what are the actual risks apart from apparently like technological risks, but what do you usually see, as a bad experience for businesses in that regard?
Yeah, look, it doesn't matter whether you're big or small. It's basically the same problems. It's legal exposure. It's your security breaches. It's it's your reputational damage, financial loss, and it doesn't matter if you're big or small. The other question is, are you big enough to feel this pain, right? If everything you have is a bunch of laptops and maybe Office 365 in the cloud, then you potentially are good enough with doing things manually and just not really thinking about automating this part of the business. And again, the question is whether you are actually getting audited for this compliance and required to comply with certain regulations.
So look, I know you mentioned that you can do this in a manual way, and and there are all these risks. So I've seen that traditionally done, right? But the problem with this manual way, it's become very expensive. It's very costly. I mean, if I look at my past organization, or even the past organizations, the majority of the effort is the compliance. Every year it's compliance. APRA comes up with some new rules. Everyone's dying to follow it. That's the way you get a project funded. So. But my question is there a way to reduce the cost of compliance? And at the same time, not just reduce the cost and how do you reduce the risk as well? Like you don't want to just reduce the cost by chopping compliance and increase risk. You want to reduce cost and reduce risk. Is there a way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And as I said, you can automate certain things. Essentially, everything that mostly everything that can be done with command line or API or I don't know, Windows registry, and that's usually where major part of compliance auditors audit processes are involved. Anything that that can be done with command line interface can be automated, and anything can be wrapped up, nicely packaged, and then reported into your central repository. So there are a couple of tools that in the market that do that. Our favorite is a combination of Inspec and Chef Compliance. That's these tools were specifically built for compliance. It's not something that's been built initially for patch management or some other sort of IT task and then kind of shoehorned into compliance. I'm not gonna call any names, but I think we all know what products I'm talking about. Essentially, you build your compliance framework and put it up as a code, and you can version control it, and then you map all your automated controls to whatever regulation framework that you adhere to, whether it's CIS, whether it's NIST, whether it's DoD or whatever you're running with.
And probably I'll jump into the area for businesses who are still considering whether they have to go down that path. automating things in compliance. From your experience, Igor, is it still possible to do it manually without breaking the bank and the risk portfolio? And if yes, still in that regard, how many man hours per month it may take to run this process, just on a high level from your experience?
It's it's a very loaded question, Eugene.
I'm very loaded today. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, you're already loaded.
Yeah, I'm already. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's after 5 p.m. I guess it's okay.
Yeah, Melbourne.
Yeah. No, of course. What else you can do in in isolation? No,
Yeah.
look. There are lots of organizations that are still doing it manually. Are they happy about it? Not really. Do they think they are spending way too much money doing that? Maybe. Some of them do, some of them don't, actually. Is there a potential for cost savings and improvement? Yes, absolutely.
Igor, we have actually questions from the audience, and we obviously love questions from the audience. Let's just answer the poll here. Paul is actually asking, from experience, compliance always seems to chasing technology. Have you had much luck being part of the initial design or new system or application? And guys, while Igor will be answering this question, I do encourage you to ask any questions regarding compliance. And also, please let us know in the comments if you're currently using any automation tools in your organization as well. So, and I'll pass it on to Igor to answer Paul's question.
Well, yes, absolutely. I've been part of various development teams working on various sized projects, including massive automation projects as well. That I'm kind of trying to understand the question. Essentially, with the technology as I started seeing a few years ago, and it's a great thing that started happening, is that smart companies who understand the cost and risk of being non-compliant, they cannot take to the heart this shift-left methodology. So they start thinking about compliance and security before they even release the new system or a new application, so that they take on board all these patterns of secure by design or compliant by design. So instead of taking on massive rectification work after they've done something, they just build it from the ground up, so it's compliant. Like one of the great example actually I have that I'm allowed to talk about, and we actually have a case study on our website, is well, not so little anymore, that one of the Australian startups called Haventech. We joined them initially, it was like 5 years ago, when there were 3 people in the company, including their founder and CEO. And as we started going through automation phases, we built in all the security and all the compliance bits and pieces straight away. One thing that that we've put in was that in production infrastructure, in production cloud, nobody can access any workloads using SSH. It's simply the port is closed. Nobody can get into any workloads using SSH. And if you open the SSH port, on one of the boxes, you trigger the alarm. So operations get alerted immediately that someone is trying to open up one of the boxes. So we achieve that using automation. So if something goes wrong, it takes I don't know, 5 to 15 minutes to replace the failed box. And then keep the old box alive, so then you can tag it in a special way, move it out of production, and then you log in and you start seeing what's happening, why it failed. Most often it's disk full because people forgot to put in proper log rotation.
And I think the question was more about like, have you participated in designing the new kind of systems to mitigate compliance risks? But apparently there has been a lot of pain around legacy systems. How usually, from your experience, businesses, transition those into compliant sort of frameworks?
Or
It's not something they do successfully.
No, look, the favorite thing I say is I haven't seen a single bank that doesn't run Windows NT Workstation in production this year, right now. Right, so there's a massive, of course, problem with legacy and how you bring that into compliance. And some of those systems you just can't. They are unable to satisfy those requirements. So for those systems, you try to replace them. If it's not possible, you just work around and make it as safe to operate as possible. Do you have any more questions from the audience?
No question from the audience. I'm going to ask the question. You know, we went quite heavily technical about compliance and automation, but I'm just gonna go back to to lighter version of the questions and about compliance.
Sure.
And simply simply want to ask you, from the business perspective, how complying with regulations can help just build trust with your customer database. So what's the link there? How we can make just our customers happy by following the compliance?
Usually you don't. Usually your customers don't really care about how compliant you are, right? Then they read in the news that your organization is getting sued for non-compliance, or they have lost 10 million customer records being accidentally put in some place that can be publicly available. That essentially you just put it as part of your. You can put it as a part of your marketing materials, and if you're in B2B area, right? If you're not B2C, then of course there's a whole new level of this game where there's a bunch of due diligence requirements, compliance and certification requirements as well.
Probably I'll have a small question around, again, coming back to new kind of situations. If you're building up a new business, so effectively startup, which is targeting several, say, jurisdictions or several markets, then you may run into a situation where you have multiple layers of requirements around privacy, around cybersecurity. Maybe some markets are more easy on that, some are more heavy on that, and then you have some of the regulations which are acting extraterritorially, covering multiple, basically, continents. what is the most lean way to customize it for yourself and build this compliance by design in the beginning without breaking the bank for a small organization which is planning to grow?
Yeah, look, it's your basic governance, risk, and compliance task, right? So first, you do what makes sense for your organization. You put in the right frameworks, you put in the right controls around security, around design of your IT, around processes within your IT. And then you take a look at all these ISOs, NISTs, and other framework, COBIT, or whatever you are looking at. And then you basically think about, okay, how do I map what I have to all those frameworks, right? So instead of being bound into one framework, you try and you still want to be lean. You still want to be effective in your organization, and you want to put in controls that you need. And most of those frameworks, they're pretty much about doing the right thing, and pretty much about doing things the right way. So yeah, don't let anyone into your production network, or ensure that you have two-factor authentication and yada yada yada, and down to very specific configurations of your systems.
So Igor,
Yeah.
I'll ask you one more. So just like Eugene, I think you have another one. So look, you've spoken about compliance and where you apply it. So in these controls, I mean, there are some that you would do manually, and maybe there are some you would automate. How do you make that decision on which ones you manually do, which ones you automate?
Basically, if it's too hard or impossible to automate, it's very obvious, right? So I'll give you one example from AWS cloud compliance. So there's one there's a bunch of controls around in your AWS cloud account. I don't remember the whole thing off the top of my head, but the gist of it, the contact details of your support, security, and person who deals with abuse reports have to be current and must point to the right people in your organization. How do you know which person is the right to deal with security issues? And that's essentially when something goes terribly wrong, and Amazon itself wants to have a chat with you, or you have external people and customers trying to report something that's that you have a problem with, and they need some valid contact details, right? So this part inherently cannot be automated. So what you can automate is the part where you have those contact details filled in at all, right? If you don't have, well, that can be automated. But as long as there's something in those details you don't know, from automation perspective, you cannot know if that person is still in that relevant position within the organization, or simply left the company. On the other hand, things like for your root accounts, for your super admin accounts in the cloud, you must have hardware MFA. So it has to be a token. It cannot be an application on your phone, because, well, usually when you leave the company, you have to hand over the tokens but not necessarily everyone will make sure that you deleted that virtual MFA app from your phone, right? And this you can absolutely validate. This is something that you can absolutely automate. So there you either use API or command line interface. You put it in the script and you check that multi-factor authentication is enabled to begin with, and B, that it is configured to be a hardware token. Yeah, so that's main distinction there.
Thank you.
I would probably drop in with a question around cloud, since we touched a little bit about AWS experience, Igor. For instance, for businesses which are just considering going cloud now or are at very early stage, would you make any kind of advice what type of environment they should select to be more lean, or probably some tools on top of their cloud, designated cloud provider they would sort of apply straight away? Any kind of drivers which can simplify this decision-making process at that stage?
Well, it's usually the only advice here is like automate as much as you possibly can, right? So don't let people push the buttons. Make sure you have a script, or usually it's a collection of scripts and modules that configure your cloud completely from end to end, because unfortunately people always make mistakes when they set something up. And if you have a configuration reference with I don't know, a few hundred controls about how certain things need to be set up in the cloud, every time you do that or you verify that, we people make mistakes, right? But what we can do is to write it in a script, write it in some sort of automation tool, doesn't matter which, and make sure. And that gives you this option that even if you do make a mistake, next time you fix it in the script, and then it becomes permanent. It's always doing the same thing over and over and over again.
I guess, guys, we already coming to almost 40 minutes mark of our live stream. I think it's time to wrap up the things a little bit. So whoever is still with us, we still have few people in the stream. Make sure you pop your question into the comments if you still want to ask last few questions. Any of the speakers, it doesn't have to be Igor. If you want to ask someone else a question, more than welcome. Here we go. As soon as I said it, there is a question. Here you go. So Pravin saying, good to see you guys online. In the retail space, things are moving fast. We use the multi-cloud approach. What do you recommend to simplify the process in-house? Any open source product suggestions?
The whole lot. So it depends which part of the application or of the environment you want to simplify and improve. If you're running multiple clouds and you want to keep it consistent across the board, then, well, Terraform is your friend. It's industry standards to rule them all. If you don't want to deal with specific cloud services that may or may not have the proper counterpart in the other cloud provider, we're seeing that Kubernetes and containers are making things very easy, and they give you quite a level playing field. It's that it doesn't matter what you're doing in every cloud. what are the particulars of the backend, whereas it's EKS in Amazon or GKS in Google and others. You can even use things like Rancher that will take configuration from all your cloud platforms, from all your clusters, and let you just make your application deployment a breeze.
I think I want to pass best regards to Praveen, and I think you kind of hit the spot, Igor, here. And knowing the background there, it's apparently about Google Cloud and AWS sort of, kind of application of open source products as well. So good answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Jana,
hey, Jana, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Yay!
I just want to, show something about emotions without saying the words, So you should guess what I've said, So guys, as I mentioned before, we want to wrap up. It's a 40 minutes mark, but we still take a few last questions if you're typing really fast. So you have a chance to pop your question in. And while you're doing those, I just want to remind you that we are planning to go live every month, and we're going to bring different speakers from different companies. And I'm actually really excited to announce that next month, first Thursday of the month, we're going live. And next month, October, we will be going live with Karen Zhang from the Google Cloud. And again, the topic will be again about the cloud. So we keep going to the cloud topic, cloud technology topic, and talking about harnessing the power of cloud technology for your business. So make sure, save the date, 8th of October, same time, same day, Thursday, 5:30 p.m. And please make sure you, if you're enjoying our discussion, hit this like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because obviously if there is a audience, we're going to keep going and keep bringing some speakers. If you have any suggestions, what sort of topics you like to discuss, if you have particular questions and would like us to bring some experts from this particular industry, multi-cloud DevOps or anything around these lines, please make sure to get in touch with us or put the comments under our videos so we can definitely bring these speakers on the stream. And I guess I'll
probably
word.
add a couple of cents here, Jana, in terms of our 8th of October stream. So it will be more of a focus around business values of leveraging Google Cloud. So I would really encourage small, medium businesses especially, and new types of businesses like fintechs, regtechs, legal techs, to join us and to ask the questions about all sorts of pains they may have around cost savings, around building up the new infrastructure, leveraging open source in combination with Google Cloud, and also whatever multi-cloud strategy they may have, because Google Cloud is pretty open-minded in that space.
Thank you for your addition, Eugen. Thank you guys for today's discussion. And before we finish up, if someone wanna just say some last words, maybe Igor, do you wanna wrap it up with some big advice? You know what? I know how we're gonna finish. We're gonna finish positive, yes. So let's imagine that all our compliance has been automated, so we don't need to do any more manual compliance check. So what things we can do now?
Relax.
Well, first of all, I think if that's the case, I'd definitely need to find a new job. That's for once. But no, look, if all your compliance checks are there, if you're not investing that, and it's not really about compliance per se, it's more about those audits that are very expensive and very painful. If you're not doing those audits, if you've automated that part of your compliance, and usually if you're running something like Chef Compliance Inspec, those big auditors, they understand the reports from those compliance tools, and they happily take it. And essentially, your discussion with your auditing team comes from the point whether are you compliant with current regulations towards how we can achieve better efficiency, how we can make things better. So if you start reviewing your compliance requirements rather than just ticking the boxes.
Eugene,
Can we say that
would
you
like
can
that?
actually focus on your business, Igor, right? Like if it's not the organization which is doing compliance by itself, they can focus on, innovation or whatever, right? On something else.
Well, yeah.
And
All right.
let's all be happy. Happy compliance.
All right. Yeah.
Russia,
We
what?
would be happy if if compliance was not an issue, we all would be very happy. I would be very happy.
Like
Here we
this
go.
guy. Like
Here we
this
go.
guy.
Yeah.
That's our goal. That's our goal, especially for those who's in Melbourne now.
I don't see any troubles in Melbourne, honestly. I brought some Sydney mindset over here. It's okay.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, but hang on. You have some special exemption there. I know that.
I still have 1 hour 45 minutes to have a walk outside.
Yep, do it.
Me too. We better hurry up, guys. We better hurry up for our
we need
walk.
to wrap up now.
Right.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I know a few people stayed silent, but we'll forgive you this time. But make sure, please participate in our discussion. It's always good to hear the questions from the audience because we want to know what you actually worried about and what sort of, what compliance issue won't let you sleep at night. So thank you so much again, guys, for joining us. We hope we will see you all on the 8th of October together with Karen. And all the best.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
Yana.
you.
Thank you, Igor. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye.